In theory, this is working. Hello again. Welcome to the Anchor. Oh gosh, I've got the wrong thing on screen. There we go. Welcome to the Anchor gardening session, as we call it, which is our little open source maintenance we do live on YouTube. You'll find us every week, normally at 8 p.m. my time, but we're an hour earlier thanks to the US changing daylight savings. So I get an extra hour somehow. That'll change, no doubt. So I'm with the open source team, which includes Alex there, Keith there, and Dan further over there. I mean, they're all further over there because they're all in America. But we're going to go through some issues and stuff. Feel free to follow along or watch this tomorrow if that's easier, which it'll be archived on YouTube. You can watch it at twice the speed or pause it and listen to what we're saying. Hopefully everything's working, and we've got Josh in the chat who's waving, which means hopefully everything's working and I'm not getting messages on Slack telling me the audio's broken. Right. Hello, chaps. How are we doing?
Wonderful.
Pretty good.
I've just noticed the number of stars. Grype has got 9,500. It's just showing me on the screen here. I have a little thing that rotates around. I guess you guys can't see it, but on the stream, there's a little block on the right-hand side. And poor old Grant has only got 75. We need to do something about that. We need to get Grant up to 100 stars. That can't be that hard, surely. Someone will get a prize when we do. Good. Thanks, Josh, for confirming. Right. So we do this every week, and we post a little thing on our discourse. You'll find there. It's also posted on all the social media and stuff. We go through issues and pull requests and other open source management. Guys, what do you want to do first? I know Keith popped this little one in the chat. Do you want to do that one first?
Probably start with that one as good as anything. Our friend Henry asked a question a while back and brought the topic back up. And I think that, the gist of the question is that he has a use case where he would like to add arbitrary name value pairs to the SBOM. And we don't really have a place to do that today. And so, this is kind of a question of like, A, what's the user experience for this? B, where's the right place to do it? C, do we want to do it at all? I mean, I think generally speaking, we have a number of requests that kind of fall into this similar category. But I guess where I was, trying to figure out a good response here was that I think we probably agreed that it's something that we, would let people do, but we definitely sort of need some sort of proposal to understand exactly what maybe to talk about it. So that's as far as I got.
What would people do if we didn't? What do they do right now? Like, just as like, if they wanted to do this, is there like use something like JQ to just inject stuff into the SBOM, or what?
Or maybe make an envelope, or depending on their software, there's some metadata you could probably figure out how to co-opt and add some key value pairs to your Docker file, and whatever. Probably stuff.
Yeah. There's like a I'll say not quite, it's not the same thing, but like maybe something that's worth thinking about at the same time. It's related to the output and actually in Grype, and that really hints at a Syft improvement. So right now in Grype, when we're outputting the matches, you'll have a vulnerability, the match details, and the artifact. The artifact is the Syft artifact. Now, you could have brought your own SBOM. You could have brought a CycloneDX or an SPDX document, and those would have had their own ID. So like package ID could be something semantically useful, like the Perl, or it could be a package name with like a U at the end. However, in Syft, like we essentially ignore those to make certain that like the graph is accurate, and we make our own ID. And so by the time you get to the Grype output, you have like the vulnerability, you have the artifact, and you have this ID, which has nothing to do with the input SBOM document. And that's a bit of a smell. Like we want to be able to preserve these original IDs that come from a decoded SBOM document. And this hints at the core like package and SBOM structs all the way back in Syft really needs to be able to kind of take, arbitrary data from arbitrary places and have that persist so it can optionally be acted upon downstream in places like Grype to pull off these things. And so why do I say this is similar? It's not exactly the same thing, but in this one sense, I have, in Syft, you have a package object, which it only knows about things that's core to Syft about packages. But like we're saying, maybe in the future, we want it to know about CycloneDX native package objects and SPDX native package objects. And it could be that we're saying, oh, and a bag of properties from the user that we got from somewhere too. It kind of fits in that same theme.
Right. And I mean, one of the things we talked about, let's say for CycloneDX too, is doing conversions, which is, Syft has its own data model. And today what we do is we ingest a document, put it in Syft's data model, and then, convert it back. So if you, convert a CycloneDX 1.5 to a 1.6, for example, it goes through this lossy, phase of taking the CycloneDX model to Syft. And, it would be nice in those cases to say, hey, I started with CycloneDX here. Here's the, the thing that you should use instead, and like be able to preserve some things that way potentially. So I think I agree, but it's a similar type of thing.
I guess my first question for this one is where are the spots where folks want to add attributes? Because I think for CycloneDX, it's like any component can get I actually have to go back and look at the taxonomy again. I can't remember like what the rules are there, but I thought it was any component. And like multiple things are components, but like there's some things that you can't add properties to. Does that ring bells for anybody? Or
I believe so.
Yeah, if that's the case, I mean, like for my head, it's like adding properties to packages makes sense. Probably adding it to source makes sense. But then, like, do we need to add it to anything else? Like, should we allow it to be added anywhere, or should we just say like, hey, keep it to the things that like folks are most interested in?
I also kind of have to ask the question, like, do you think it's necessary to actually have these, to build a mechanism where they're attached to any specific element, or,
I'm hoping no.
Right. I mean, just like a
It's easier to
generic
build.
section called annotations, it supports key value pairs, might just kind of fit the bill, right? I mean, I don't know. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, because definitely on the product side, 100%, that is something we had to add like almost instantaneously to the system, because people just want to put whatever they want in there, like some key value pair. And then they figure out if it has to be attached to something, they'll actually figure out what it needs to be attached to and use that as the key name, and then build a little weird structure. It's almost always some kind of like, that's why, at least over there we call it annotations. So it's a good question. I'm just like raising, like, I kind of wonder how generic of a solution we might consider.
In SPDX 3, there's an extension on the element. So most things kind of extend from the element in the SPDX 3 model, but not everything. So like in that case, the element is like fairly analogous, I think, to a component in CycloneDX. I mean, there's certainly not exactly the same, but that's kind of the limitation there.
But I kind of wonder if people are referring to those extensions because they actually need their metadata attached to those elements, or because that's the only way they can encode any annotations today, because you must attach them to some element in Cyclone.
It's a good question. I guess I'd like to know more about the use cases that people have. I mean, you mentioned, Dan, that people annotating anything, it sounds like, is kind of a use case there. But I mean, what, like, practically, what do those end up being? Like, does it really just end up being everything? Like, they're annotating a file, they're annotating a license, they're annotating a,
I think they're, well, at least I'm not speaking for everybody, maybe even in this conversation, but like the experience I've had thus far in this area is like it's annotating the SBOM itself. Like, this one's blue, this one's red, and that has some meaning in their organization. blue things are dev and red things are prod. So they just need to be able to label it right somehow. And if they need something like, specific, they can use a generic key value implementation to provide some hints. Like ignore RPMs equals a list of RPMs could be a key value that somebody puts in, and then they process that later somewhere on their own. It's just, in my experience, has always been made to either overlay something that's only really specific to whatever they're trying to do, and they just need to put a label or an annotation in place, or it's a way to encode, things that are a little off the normal track.
Yeah, I mean, and if it's at the top level SBOM, so it's like only that one singular thing at the highest level, like how someone would use that makes sense. It's like, well, it's a CLI flag, it's a config, and then once you get into like adding properties per package, which I feel like would be a useful thing to do, but like then what gets fuzzier is the UX around that. Like, okay,
Right.
is it like when package name is this and version is that, then I add these properties, or is it that I have like a hints file that kind of knows the answers to the package names and versions and adds information in that way, and I specify this file as input additionally. Like, is it something else? Like it gets a little fuzzier. It's possible, but yeah, the top level SBOM one definitely makes sense.
I just so happened to get a view into somebody's usage of SPDX3 recently, and was the top level SBOM was specifically what they were annotating, and that's the same thing that I think Henry's asking for as well. Is like the top level SBOM and not really individual elements within it.
Yeah, he
Well,
mentioned
start simple.
team name and like a registry host name and some stuff like that.
Well, then I totally take back my comment earlier about this is similar to bringing along like arbitrary objects from other formats, because then it's like very much not that. If we're saying it's the simplest kind of case and we're really just talking about the top level SBOM, like, yeah, let's do it. Then it's just like -- property on like the CLI, and it's kind of it.
I mean, the only thing that I keep coming back to, for better or worse, when we talk about this stuff, is that we don't have a package that represents the top level thing, and the other formats, SPDX and CycloneDX, do. And so we generate a package for those, and because of this, like, we've kind of gone and added a source name and a source version, and there's another request for a source supplier, I believe, and like now we've got another request for like adding some properties in, and I keep on going back to like, this feels a lot like we should have a package that's representative of the top level thing. But I mean, that's definitely challenging in the way that Syft works, because we don't necessarily know what that is. If they scan a directory really doesn't make a great package. A container might, but not everything.
I mean, the way that so I kind of see it like in between, where like I think something we chatted about in the past is, okay, maybe a sort, so like in Syft, that source object should like itself, like a subset of that, be literally a package.package. And the reason for that being is so you can, when you're encoding formats like Cyclone and SPDX, you can literally just take whatever is on there and use that as your like primary package purpose for SPDX, or your top level component in CycloneDX, and nest everything accordingly. And then when you're, say, decoding back, you can easily identify that package, take it out of like the core set of packages and translate it back to a source. Then we do some of that today, but we're not doing that with the core package object. We're doing it with like a source object, and I definitely agree. Like, for those formats, it makes a lot of sense. I think the property that would be great to like kind of preserve from like the Syft JSON output point of view is not mixing like packages we find and like the thing we scanned. Like the fact that source and package are like separate in the document feels really great, because then people don't get confused at like, hey, I found something called like Kubernetes, as opposed to like, oh no, I just scanned the Kubernetes image. It's like what you scanned and what you found should be like strongly partitioned, but it doesn't stop us from still encoding it spec compliant like in these other formats and having a core object that represents it within the source object. That would make a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I guess just like from a practical standpoint to get this moved forward, I mean, it certainly seems like the simplest solution is to have some kind of a name value map that is kind of stored in the same place the source name and source version are. Maybe not exactly the same, but I mean, is that something that if we suggest this as a solution that if somebody chose to pick it up, we would probably get merged in, or would we want something different?
I'll add in like there's a couple flavor variants, which is like, well, one is, does it belong on the source always? And another one is like, well, does it belong, like closer to what Dan, you were saying earlier, which is like on the SBOM. So like, right next to source, but not as part of the source. Might be splitting hairs, but might be worth thinking through or talking about, or I don't know if both are like, what do we want to do both? I kind of don't know. But I mean, I head on to the general direction with some question about that, where exactly it goes.
Okay, well, I can try to summarize that here, at least for Henry, if he's not watching along, which I think he does sometimes. But
do we not have a bug tracking this? Is this not something people have asked for before?
There probably is one. As I was going to say, is I'll find the related issue, and if there doesn't happen to be one, create one.
I think there's only one for Cyclone that got closed because the guy implemented with 1.3, but I don't think there is one for Syft like generically.
Okay, I just wondered. Sweet. Do we have any other things to mention about that, or is that done topic, do you think?
Done topic.
Sweet. Do any of you have anything you want to discuss before I start diving into whatever else is on this this list?
I think there is one that might be worth chatting through. I guess a couple. I'll drop them both here. They're both, the same kind of issue. One for Syft, one for Grype, and it's about describing multiple inputs. So like we've kind of had a few different ways we talked about this in the past, but like I'll say generically, this is really about like, hey, I want Syft to scan multiple things. I want Grype to scan multiple things. And this comes up, and Syft sometimes will be like, oh, I want a Kubernetes manifest and scan all the images in there. Or sometimes it will say, hey, if I give you an image that is like a multi-architecture image reference, I want you to scan all the images that it's really referencing from that index, and not just like, the one that represents my host. But they all kind of are circling around the same thing, which is, okay, I've given you, I want to be able to give Syft, right, a set of things to scan and then produce something. And in the past, I guess the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because we think we might have nudged this forward a bit. And me and Keith were talking during one of the triage sessions earlier this week. And it's down a little bit on the Syft issue in the comments, but in the past, we kind of got wound around the axle about like, hey, how can we have a single SBOM that describes multiple sources in like a way that doesn't like just kind of combinatorially explode like all the relationships. And like we saw that there was a way to do it. We saw it would be like a bunch of changes, and it wasn't clear if it was really going to add like a ton of value, like if this was what folks really, really wanted. So we kind of kicked the can down the road. But something about how we were talking about it last week, we kind of realized like, well, what if it's just, you you're outputting in many documents, you know, and like we don't have a great way to express that to disk per se, but like it's streaming to, so say one file or just a standard out. But like, you know, the JSON, SPX, and Cyclone have ways of expressing that. Like I have in many documents in this one file. So like JSON, that's JSON-L. XML natively supports this. Tag value, I don't know what to do. Maybe we put like some dashes in between, but table, you know, it's just it's human readable. It's not actually a machine readable thing, so we're not too concerned about that. But if we go that direction, that simplifies the path, because now it's just we're just running what we're doing in Syft and many times and writing to the same writer. It's no longer like we don't need to change core types all that much, if at all. And B, this kind of kicks any problems that we're talking about with, like, how do we start supporting multiple sources in an SBOM down to like what doesn't exist yet. So like we could add in the future like an Syft like merge subcommand that like takes multiple SBOMs and merges them together. There are some tools out there that already do this, and they have to, you know, whenever you're doing this like merging of SBOMs, like you're going to be making trade-offs. You need to ask the user like, hey, can I make this assumption or not? But like all those assumptions get kicked to that kind of capability, and scanning multiple targets is really just about generating multiple documents, and it's simpler now.
Yeah, I'd say it's introducing that there's a difference between like a batch operation and a combine operation, like, which I think makes a lot of sense. Like to me, it reads as a add support for batch scanning to make that distinction.
Yeah.
Right, and I think it's like something we could easily make opt-in potentially if we needed to, I guess, right? Just thinking from the end user perspective, if, you know, if they say, hey, give me a tag value format of something like this, and we could just say, hey, no, we can't do that. Here's, you know, give us a file pattern. I don't know, that we'd probably have to figure out, maybe we wouldn't support that one, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
like
man.
the JSON lines, for example, like they would probably have to know that they were going to get, you know, multiple lines in the JSON lines format, for example.
Yeah, I agree with the opt-in, and I think somebody came up with a way that was an opt-in approach. In one of these issues, I have to go back and look at it. There's probably about 5 different issues that circle this whole drain here. What strikes me about this is a lot of the conversations have been in Syft for this stuff, and there's only a couple issues in Grype about this, but like in actuality, like the power for a lot of this really comes in Grype, because odds are you know, a lot of folks just really want to know about your set of matches, like what do I need to remediate from what I gave you. But batching here makes a lot more sense. It's like I really just want to know, like I have this directory of SBOMs, like please tell me all the things, like, because then the table view will deduplicate them, etc. Like it's easier to view, so to speak. But the whole multi-source problem is not really an issue, because the output doesn't care about source in a lot of ways. It's really just about the artifacts. That's all I had here. I don't know if anybody had anything else on this one, but I just wanted to mention that we have a way that we've nudged forward on this, and it's probably actionable in the near future. So
cool. Thank you for that. Anyone else got any more? Or do we dive in? Have we got any discussion things that we need to let's check. I think
Keith, you dropped an issue in the chat. Is this
It's this one. Yeah, this is just
sorry.
Continuation of the thing we were talking about with like multi architecture images.
Yeah. People want
okay.
11 thumbs up.
So. Yeah. Um,
I honestly do think for that one in particular, I am fairly certain that the second that we implement this with the multiple document approach, the very next question we're going to get is, hey, can you implement merge? Whereas like a lot of the others, I think they're less concerned about that. But I think for this particular use case, when you're trying to scan, like, trying to describe like a logical image that is really a set of images, people actually do want a single SBOM. Or I can see the argument why someone would really want a single SBOM for this.
I agree. I also think this is enough of a special case because it's the way containers work. There isn't a great analog for like directories or source code here. That like a specific feature set, which is like if you give Syft a fat manifest or a manifest list, the material being produced you can give to Grype, and Grype will be able to give you a good vulnerability result that includes all of the architectures. Because
Yeah.
honestly, I don't think there's going to be like a ton of actual differences. Like very few in my experience so far. I'm happy to be proven wrong, and somebody watching might be like, you're an idiot, but it's infrequent that I've seen like a vulnerability of note, like only applying to a certain architecture and not some other. It does happen, but it's a very uncommon thing.
Yeah.
That being and the point is, like, I don't think that's gonna there is an edge case where you scan an image with 10 different architectures and you actually get 10x CVEs. You're probably going to get the same relative number of vulnerabilities, plus or minus a couple.
Agreed.
Right.
So I think it's fine for there to be a feature area that's just about this, not necessarily about something else.
cool.
And when you say that, I mean, do you mean that like maybe instead of even doing like multiple SBOMs in this case, we could just sort of combine them and say like, well, you scanned this one thing, even though it's a multi-architecture thing, and we did the scans individually, but then just combine them. I mean, is that what I'm hearing is that Alex said that's immediately what somebody's going to ask for, and that you're saying that's probably what people want too.
Well, and also I feel like this is enough of a specific use case. I mean, generally speaking, and again, like, everything in this world is like, it depends, but generally speaking, when somebody's got a manifest list, it's the same source material built for different architectures, right? It's not completely different things in the list, right? So because of that, there's an opportunity for deduplication, I think.
Have we done that one to death?
I got one more thing to add, and then we
Okay.
can let the dead horse be dead. That was it. That somebody mentioned, I think it was on this issue or another one, where like the opt-in way for this could be like -- arch, and we would do like Linux/star or like star, or list out the specific ones you're interested in, and that would be a way to like tell Syft, hey, I do want you to look at multiple images if you find them, and create a single document without us having to really like support like, we don't want to support that for like any kind of input we have. Like it would only be for images, which is like Dan, you're saying, like the special case. And so someone came up with I think a nice way in one of these issues about it. I think it was like -- arch and allowing that to be a list or pattern. So I'll find this.
Like, PR is welcome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was this one. that was the one. So it was platform blah. Okay, yeah.
Right.
All right, I have nothing else on this. Horse is dead.
Are you sure? One of
Kick
the other
horse.
ones that says needs discussion. I'm pretty sure we've discussed this before. Those are the notes.
Yeah.
We know
Yeah.
this.
We have. I don't think there's anything like here that we can buffer. It's actually probably more of a needs investigation at this point. But so I don't think there's much more to discuss on it per se.
Right. I'm going to remove. How do you remove that? Right. Done. Repeated invocations produce. Oh, this is basically the same thing. And the fact that it's got both discussion and investigation. I think we talked about this before, didn't we? Okay. So this was this is basically reproducibility in building vulnerability lists, right?
I believe so. I have to head back to this one. Yeah, I mean it's the same.
Is it because we've got
general.
timestamps in there and stuff in? Is that basically, or is it just non-deterministic the order that stuff comes out?
No, there's a timestamp in there, and like the reason being like, so we purposely didn't do that for. Oh yeah, it's not a dupe because the other one's talking about S-bombs. This one's talking about vulnerability scans. But like for a vuln scan, it like the time element is really important, so it kind of makes sense why you would want to keep that. There's an alternative, which is, well, as long as you're using the same database, it doesn't matter if you scanned it, 1 o'clock in the afternoon versus 5 in the afternoon, because if it's the same database, we already have the checksum in there. And we could probably include like the database, like original database, like data info in there, as opposed to, the time when, you ran the Grype itself, and that would be valuable. But I don't think we can get rid of, I don't think we can actually get rid of like all timestamps per se. I think we can get rid of the one.
So this is unfixable, basically.
Well, it could be improved, but like since you can't get rid of timestamps.
Well, the timestamps of the database, or the timestamp that you ran?
Scroll down to, I've got a post on here, January 25th. Keep going down. Yeah, we have the stuff. So there's two. If you scroll down just a little more, this, yeah, there we go. This JSON output kind of shows the two timestamps. One is like the db.built, and the other one is timestamp. And so the one that says just timestamp at the very bottom is just I invoked Grype at this time, and that's the one we could probably remove, because the db built is the important one. That's when you have what. Here's how old the data is.
The other workaround for that is give the user the option for the format of this. And so if they say the format is YYYYMMDD, then that's what they get. At least they have the day granularity. And if they run it twice in one day, now obviously if it runs either side of midnight, then that's broken. But I don't know whether that is enough to like not omit the time, but allow people to configure it so that they don't have something that changes.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what this one's saying at the very bottom. It's like, well, we could do like Grype timestamp equals false kind of thing, or
Right.
It could be the format, like what you're saying. Could be both. So I don't think this is a needs discussion. Let me read what Will's saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my vote is to not close it, but instead just implement what we just chatted about.
Well, like
So
hide the
option
timestamp.
B.
Option to hide the timestamp.
Yeah. So I'm gonna remove the needs discussion and investigation. It's just, I'll kind of put on an extra vote on here, so.
Did you say you're going to leave a comment to suggest?
Yep.
And that
Yep.
makes it ready. Cool. Nice. We got something done, chaps.
That could be a good first issue as well.
Yeah.
That's like a good candidate for that.
I'll give that a go.
Agreed.
Sweet. Thank you, chaps. That's great. So that's the only one that still needs discussion on it, which we have discussed. No pull requests with need discussion. That's okay. What do you want to start now? We've got a little bit of time left, so we can go through some issues in the project board if you like.
Seems fine.
So there we go. Is that the view we normally use? Triage?
Indeed. Yep. And you can pick out a random.
We're going to pick a random, are we?
Yep.
Okay. That one. Depackage not detected when scanning a directory. It is this one. So, what are they doing? Are they dumping a load of debs in a place? Same files are found when tar file. Oh. Attempts to find depackage in files using that pattern. Oh, interesting. Looks like they're using Syft as a library, right? Because given they've...
I think so. Yeah. I think from my perspective, this looks like it has, I haven't actually verified it yet, but it looks like it has enough information to reproduce it, and it seems as though it is already.
Agreed.
Agreement?
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, agreed.
Tag it as what?
Debian as well. I think that's, sorry, did I just make that up?
No, it's a file resolver, I think, issue.
We haven't got one.
I think just bug is fine.
Yeah. Sweet.
Ecosystem OS, that's what I was thinking of. I just added that one. Okay.
Oh, okay, thanks. Right. Wrong version of Git causes false positive in Jenkins Docker image. Run this command to scan my Docker Jenkins image. A 13 for Git. Here's the Git version. Oh, I think we looked at this, didn't we? This is an epoch problem. Thank you. Doing that on a remote machine, not this laptop.
It definitely looks like an epoch, but I'm curious if it's wrong to include the epoch.
It should be that without the 1. No, I disagree. Well, I don't know. What is the version of...
Yeah, I gotta go pull that down.
What version of Debian is this based on?
I'm pulling it to check it out.
It is definitely Debian and not an Ubuntu. Tab 12U1. Oh, okay. Well, we've gone past that now. 1, 2, 13. Yeah, they have epochs. That is the right version number.
And this is a Syft issue, so it's not talking about like how it intermingles with vulnerable data or anything yet. So and yes, I confirm it's definitely putting epoch. Let's see what the raw
It's like
build
Debian.
is.
It's a Debian image. Debian 12 bookworm.
What version was in there? 2.39.
2.39.5.
I see the epoch in there.
Yeah, I just ran that image and did a APT list, and it shows me what I pasted in there with an epoch in our chat.
Agreed. This looks like everything is
Working
all roads
as
point
expected.
to this is doing the thing as it should.
From Syft, it's interesting that the users reporting there's a like the name of the issue refers to a false positive. I wonder if we shouldn't kind
Yeah.
of discussion that way. Like what's the false positive?
Okay, here we go. For example, there we go. I didn't scroll past the image in the issue. He goes into some specifics there.
I don't see 32465. Or 25652. I don't see either of those.
Yeah, in the output, I agree.
When was this they
For
did
Grype.
this? Syft 118.1. So not that long
Well,
ago.
I want to know what version of Grype they were using,
Yeah,
'cause they're-
well, they're not. They're uploading it to another tool.
yeah, that's right.
So maybe the other tool
Is
is
this
wrong.
does that look like dependency track?
It does a bit, yeah.
Yeah, I can't quite tell, but it looks like it.
I mean, down here they mention Trivy,
They're using
and
CycloneDX.
they do mention dependency track.
All right, so Grype is doing the right thing. Syft is doing the right thing. They're manually inputting. Okay, so they're getting false positives in dependency track for an SBOM. Oh, I think we have Mr. Panic here. They're saying that they're getting bad vuln data in dependency track when there's an epoch. But like dependency track is the one that's doing the matching at this point.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I don't really have evidence as to what their manual edits are, but like, let's just say it's just removing the epoch. I don't know why all of a sudden dependency track would do the correct thing, but I think this is a closed because Syft and Grype are doing the right thing.
Yeah, can we show that Grype, that maybe it's part of that, like say like, Grype's not including these, like the epoch is a weird thing that a phone scanner needs to take into account, right? I'd be really surprised if dependency track didn't honor epochs though.
I agree.
Yeah, neither of them show up.
Right.
Interesting. I like that.
All right, so who wants to take the writing response to this one?
I got it.
You got it?
I was just going to have a quick look and see what mentions of epoch are in dependency track.
That second one might be interesting. Because it's Cyclone. Oh, is this the same person? Look at the top sentence. Generated by Syft.
No.
Oh, in that issue, are they saying the conclusion was Syft shouldn't be adding an epoch?
Anyway, let's not solve other people's problems. So you're going to leave a reply on that one, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to pick one more before we finish off? Anyone want to pick one at random? It's going to have to be one down the bottom.
What about that? The first, oh, sorry, go ahead. You have a preference.
Which one? I don't. I was just going to click because nobody spoke quick enough.
The first one on the list was maybe also related to one that we semi-closed earlier, right? Reproducible SMOMs. I thought maybe there might be a connection between this one and the other one that we talked about already.
Yeah. Yeah, looks like. Yeah, we did. I think we did open this one, didn't we? Or did? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did.
Well, we're going to add like a remove timestamp from Grype, but what's the not reproducible part in the Syft side?
I think we had some orderings. We've solved some of it since this was opened.
That's what I thought. I wasn't sure if we'd arrived there yet.
I don't know either. Actually, we could have. A big one was adding the key values package element. So like all maps turn into slices for nested stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like Keith, you're about to say something too.
I was just going to say that, I mean, I've been doing some parallelization work, and I've just been doing diffs or like, a diff from A to B, and I haven't seen any kind of, things that look like they're related to out of order elements in that. So that's just
You actually get a sensible diff, like it shows you lined up and everything accurate.
Well, ideally I get zero diff, which is like,
Right.
I get nothing, right? But you would get, obviously, if we had elements that were shifting around, like you'd very quickly get diff issues.
That's kind of why I wanted to touch on this one too, because like I do an awful lot of this kind of stuff, and literally use diff to see if there's any difference between this, that, and the other after it's been JSON parsed and all this stuff. And like I'm not seeing any out of order things that imply that Syft SBOMs aren't reproducible when pointed at the same thing these days. So I kind of wonder in this one if maybe we shouldn't like raise a question. Is anyone seeing anything? Because it should be reproducible. Syft should generate the same content every time you run it against the same thing.
Right, and as Alex mentioned, we have definitely done like work to make that happen.
Right.
I think that this one may just well be fixed.
What? Oh, because I didn't JQ them. But that does indicate they're different. There's probably a better way to do this, I'm sure. What? Oh. I shouldn't be
Is this
showing them.
Cyclone DX? Cyclone DX may be an outlier though.
Oh, because you get a serial number and a timestamp.
Yeah, there's some stuff in that one that are unique to each run.
Yeah, we can't control those. We can only control the Syft native.
Is there an easier way for me to do this through JQ? Or do we just do that?
Yeah, that way works.
I'm trying to figure out what are you diffing? The one.
I was just going to run it twice, run the same thing
Oh,
twice,
okay.
and then just diff it.
I
Just
thought you were
as
going
an
to do
example.
one.json with one-jq.json, but that'll.
Oh, God. Yeah. The files are the same,
Yeah.
as you would expect. So everyone should just use the Syft format, Jason. Like that's the answer here. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah. Send angry letters to dan@anchor.com. So is there anything further we need to discuss about this?
I mean, I think like Will's question, number one is like, to what extent are things not reproducible? And, if there's a problem, we need examples of that and then we'll fix it.
Yeah, I'm thinking if I was just wondering if we're ready to say like, we think this is a closed ticket. Syft native format SBOM should be reproducible. Open a new one if you find it, and we'll. Yeah. I'm just looking for a way to move the ticket forward from open to some other state, because I don't think there's more to discuss or investigate here at the moment.
Yeah, I think I'm also in the, I think close it, probably add changelog ignore, but close it's completed and changelog ignore because we didn't actually change anything. So recently, so like it's been a while.
Okay.
Like the only other thing I could think to add for this is like, and I don't actually believe in what I'm about to say, is like add a explicit test that takes one artifact and like runs it multiple times and checks you get the same checks when you digest it. I don't actually believe in that because, well, like there are in many kinds of, artifacts you can, that you might want to run through this to make certain it's reproducible. So I think that test could pass, and it's possible for someone to find an edge case where it will fail. So I don't think it's valuable to add yet until we find a nice way to do it.
Okay. So do you want to leave a comment and we'll close it?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take that one.
I'm still writing the other one, so.
Okay. Thanks, Keith. Sweet. Well, we're nearly up to the hour. and I don't want to hold you guys up. Also, you know, it's an hour earlier for me, so I don't want to hold myself up either. Thank you, chaps. Very useful as always. I appreciate you spending some time to go through some of these issues. And for anyone else who wants to get involved and try out Syft and Grype, it's very easy. Just go to anchor.com/open source. All the links are there. If you want to get involved and try a first issue, then we have some tagged good first issues, and have a go on one of those. Let us know if there's anything else you want to see, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, chaps. Have a good week.
Thanks all.
See
Take
ya.
care.
Bye.
Cheers.